Welcome to the Piston Fanatic. I'm your host, Dave Dalton, and I'm excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons as we go on this fantastic voyage together. I've been a diehard Piston fan since the days of Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. I've also been the varsity basketball coach of a very successful program. I would appreciate it if you would like and subscribe. Thank you very much for listening. Today we're going to talk about some free agents that I'm excited about, or some trades that we could make that I think are realistic trades. There's a lot of things out there. There's a lot of chatter out there about things I think that are completely unrealistic. But today we're going to talk more about the ones I think are realistic. We're going to talk for a minute to start out with about the search for the head of basketball operations or the president of basketball operations, whichever you want to call it. So anyway, the big name that keeps coming up that some people in the know say is the favorite is Jon Horst. That's with the Milwaukee Bucks, and he has been feels like he's been losing some of his power because Giannis has been kind of dictating things. But I will also say he's done a really good job there to trying to get Giannis what he wants. But they are in a sinking ship, in my opinion. I saw this stat and I haven't confirmed it, but of the 8 teams left in the playoffs, that there are only 6 players that are over 30 left, like KCP and Mike Conley and Drew Holiday, and I forget who the other 3 are. But so that tells you it's a young players league, and the Bucks, all their players, Middleton and Giannis and Lillard and Portis and Lopez, they're all over 30. So they got a whole team, and so their chances of things going south on them are pretty good, I would think. And so, just like I said, Bob Meyer for the Warriors jumped ship at the right time when the Warriors were sinking, and I think that Jon Horst recognizes that. So that's the thing. And again, he felt maybe like he was losing power, but here he is. Why would you want to come to Detroit? Well, you got a chance. We got some good young talent. We got some cap space, and you got a chance to have low expectations and build a team up. And that might be attractive to him, but even bigger, there's something about us Michigan people. We're fans. Even people from Michigan that moved to different states, they're still Piston fans and Tiger fans and Lion fans and Red Wing fans. And so he grew up in Sandusky, and he went to Rochester College, and he worked for the Pistons, and so he knows the vibe, and it's in your heart. It's just like, why am I this diehard Piston fan? And we had the worst team in the league, for like 4 years in a row. So anyway, I do think that it'll be interesting. I know there's a couple more new names that have been thrown out. Dennis Leary, that's worked for the Mavs and the Jazz, and JJ Redick, and I don't think that's a real thing. He seemed like I've heard on his podcast him say that he wanted to be a coach, but he probably has some knowledge. And some people think because who was his agent when he played? Arn Tellem. And so there's always the Arn Tellem thing that everybody that he's connected to seems like they get a job for the Pistons. So, and players that are his son's their agent, then they get jobs too. But anyway, I think that, JJ Redick, he and LeBron do a podcast together. So, I mean, there's still a speculation they do that podcast. And so some people suggested that was his interview for the Laker job. So that will be interesting. He is very smart. JJ is smart. He knows basketball. Some guys can fool people. If Lions fans, Matt Millen was a player, and then Matt Millen went into the broadcasting booth, and then Matt Millen got hired by the Lions because he sounded intelligent during the football podcast or the football telecast of NFL football, like he really knew his stuff. And then obviously when he got to Detroit, he was one of the worst general managers in any sport in history. So people talk about Tim Connelly, and he helped build the Nuggets team that's getting blown out right now by Minnesota, but now he's with Minnesota. So it's sports are so fascinating. Everybody was dissing on the Timberwolves last year and how they made the worst trade in history. I mean, I need to find what guy said it, but there's lots of guys said that was the worst trade in NBA history when they traded for Rudy Gobert, and Tim Connelly was the guy that did that. So now there's been some power struggle, or what's going to happen with the ownership and the sale of the team. The Glenn Taylor that's owned him for a long time and selling to A-Rod and his group, but now there's some snags in it, and so there's they think that maybe Conley would want to leave just because of the avoid that contention, but he's riding a good, a floating ship. His ship is sailing smooth right now, and they look, the Timberwolves, like they look like they could win it all. I mean, they blew out the Nuggets last night, who everybody picked to win it, and they annihilated them, and they did it without Rudy Gobert, and he was his wife or whoever was giving birth to his first child, I think. So anyway, we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about some players that the Pistons can get and free agents. We're going to talk about free agents. One thing we have to keep in mind, I've been saying this for 2 years, we want forwards that are 6'7" to 6'10" or 6'11" that can defend and shoot. And we haven't had them. And Troy did a great job getting Fontecchio. So, and then we have Asar, so he's going to need to play. So we have 2 forwards already. So we do need more. You can never have too many. But my thought is, what's going to happen if you get like 5 of them? But another thing I've learned, and all of Piston fans should learn, is that you need really quality depth at every position, because there's injuries just nonstop. It's really prevalent among centers that they get injured all the time, but still we need, depth, and we haven't had even good starters, and let alone. So we need to get really good players. But the first one I'm going to talk about is a guy I'm almost most excited about. It's Naji Marshall. He plays for the Pelicans. He's a free agent, unrestricted. And he's 6'7". He's 26 years old. So I love 26-year-old guys. They're veterans. They've been in the league for a while, but they're still just not quite even in their prime yet. And he is a high energy guy. He's a great defender. He's kept improving. He's progressed throughout his career, got better and better. Last year he averaged 7 points a game, 3.6 rebounds, 2 assists, shot 46% and 39% on threes. So that's the big thing. He only got paid $2 million. So here's the problem that we need to capitalize. We got all this cap space, and they have, Herb Jones, who's a wing, and they have Trey Murphy, one of my favorite players, Trey Murphy the third, and Zion's really a wing, and they have other wings, and so they have too many, and they're at the salary cap now. They're paying C.J. McCollum a bunch of money, and are they going to pay Brandon Ingram? There's still talk that he's going to get traded. Zion's going to get a boatload of money, so they're financially strapped a little bit, so they can't. So we can overpay Naji. We need to overpay him. And whether and so here's the thing: when you're getting a big free agent that's going to make 40 to 50 million, that really handcuffs you. But when you overpay a guy, and you're going to pay him 5 million more when he's going to make 15 million instead of 10 million, when they can't match that, or no team can, because most teams don't have that much cap space. So if there's a team that has a lot of cap space, that if the 76ers got a lot of cap space, and so do the Spurs and a few other teams, that they could go after him. But the Magic have it, but they got forwards up the Zuzu, so they don't need him. So anyway, like I said, he's tough. He's got lots of energy, and his last game, when they got eliminated by Oklahoma City, he scored 16 points. He was 5 for 9 and 4 for 7 on threes. And so I'm all about getting him, and even whether we have to overpay or whatever, that's a guy worth overpaying for with his age. And again, you can give him. I like a guy like that, giving him a 4-year contract with the team option. But and then also where we're at right now with guys like him, you can pay him more this year, and wait, if we have to re-sign or extend, Jaden Ivey or Jalen Duran, then we can give him a descending contract where we pay him more the first year and less the following year. So he's a big one. Another guy I'm really excited about is Jalen Smith, that plays for the Pacers. So obviously the Pacers would want to keep him, and I don't know how much cap space they have, but we need to try to overpay him. And so he's, 6'10", and he can shoot the three. So that's a huge thing. And he can rebound. He only made 5.4 million. He's got for next year. He's got a player option, so he is not going to take that player option. He's only 24, 6'10". He can play the 4 and the 5. He's athletic. He averaged like 10 points a game, 5.5 rebounds, shot 59% and 42% on threes. And I mean, that's a guy you overpay. And so that we got to see, and I still think it was a little bit overrated. Mike Muscala last year, and everybody was so hyped, but he didn't play that many games. But it was true that having a threat at the 5 position opened things up for people. But I still think there wasn't even hardly enough minutes. He didn't play that. He played like 13 minutes a game and not that many games. But I think Jalen Smith would be a huge upgrade for us, and 24 years old and can play both positions, and so I think he would per 36. His per 36 numbers were 20.7 points per game, 11.6 rebounds, 2.2 assists, and 1.3 blocks per 36 minutes. So that's a guy. So let's go get those two guys. Another guy that a lot of people have talked about this in trades is DeAndre Hunter, and he's been linked to the Pistons in rumors for the last couple years, and he's been injured a lot, and he's only 26, and they thought he was going to be this great defender. I still think he's a average to plus defender, but he's not. They thought he might be an elite defender, but he's like 6'7". He has 3 years left on his contract, and he only makes like 21 to 24 million over the next 3 years. So people are speculating that the Hawks are going to want to trade guys like him for pennies on the dollar because they just need to get out for money. So the Hawks were 36 and 46, and they got this enormous salary cap hit on their team. They got so many guys that make so much money. What they have is they got a lot of guys that make 20 or 30, and they don't have they're going to try to get rid of some of those contracts. So they thought, some people even said that they thought we could get him for some second round draft picks or something. I doubt that, but in 5 seasons, he's only had 1 year where he's played over 63 games. He did finish this year really, really strong, and he didn't get off to the greatest start, but he averaged 15.6 points a game, 4 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 46%, 39% on threes. That's what we're talking about right there. 85%. And like I said, he's at least decent on defense. So Patrick Williams is another one, and he's only 22. And Patrick Williams plays for the Bulls, but he had a terrible start. They were just trying to talk about just getting rid of him. He wasn't even getting to play. His numbers were horrific, but he got a chance later in the year, and he turned it around. And I just want to talk about this again. People get upset with Jaden Ivey's up and down, and he was, and it was disappointing. His end of the season was very disappointing and surprising to me. But Therese Halliburton scored 6 points last night in the playoff game against the Knicks. 6 points. He was dominating the league. Everybody talked about him. He was first team All NBA. Everybody said he was all the buzz into November and into December was about how amazing, and he was the face of the league going to be. He's so young and so good, and then he got that injury, and he has just struggled. And again, like I said last night, he scored 6 points, and his percentages have dipped. But anyway, Patrick Williams had injuries too, and so he only played in 43 games, 22 years old, 10 points a game, 4 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 44%, 40% on threes, 80% from the line. So he's 6'7", and he was always thought to be a good defender. So we'll just see. And I wouldn't overpay for him. I would pay, less than 20 million a year, but it's hard to say what the Bulls would match for him. So a guy I've talked about in the past, Taurean Prince, he kind of got the Lakers. There's been a lot of debate in Laker Nation about whether he, should have played as much as he did or whether he should have started when he did. But he's a good NBA player, and he's older. He's 30, but he's another guy. So if we get, say we got Fontecchio and Naji Marshall and Jalen Smith, and then we had a guy like him that could play limited minutes or is there if we got injuries. But he doesn't make very much for the Lakers. But the Lakers are, they're strapped money-wise. So they're not going to – we can spend any of them. We can overpay any of those guys if we want to. But he's a unrestricted free agent. He's 6'7", 30 years old, not average 9 points. Doesn't get a lot of shots when you're playing with LeBron and Anthony Davis and the other guys there. But 9 points, 3 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 44% from the floor, but 40% on threes. So he's a good defender. A guy that us Michigan fans, and I wish I could have remembered. Somebody said what his real first name was, Max Christie. So you Spartan fans will probably know what his real first name is, but it's got Max in it, but it's a cool name. But anyway, he's unrestricted, and he's or he might be restricted. I apologize for that, but he's 6'6", and he showed really good signs of playing good. He wasn't the greatest at Michigan State. He didn't quite live up to expectations for the Spartans, but this year he's played very limited minutes, 4.2 points a game, 2.1 rebounds, 1 assist, 43% from the floor, and 36% on threes. But there's a lot of buzz about him. So the big free agent center position, that's been a lot of talk, and the challenge here is, we have Duren, and are we going to trade Duren? And again, my big thing about making trades is you have to have somebody that wants to do the trade with you, and you can't just say, I want to trade Jalen Duren. And I wouldn't be opposed to trade Duren or IB, even though I love them both, but I'm not going to give them away. I'm not going to trade them for pennies on the dollar. And if you have Duren, do you want to, we're not paying him hardly anything, and Claxton and Hartenstein are going to demand a lot of money, like at least $20 million a year. So I did see, though, there's things about the center position. You look at Dallas; they have Gafford and Lively split that spot, and they can play together a little bit, but it's worked out good for them. And even when the Knicks had Hartenstein, and they just lost Mitchell, and he just got injured. He's out for 6 to 8 weeks now, and so he's dominant center. But it's just going to be interesting what happens. If we get another center, if we trade Duren, but Hartenstein, and I like Hartenstein a lot, and I like Claxton a lot, but they don't shoot threes, so that's why it's hard. You can't play them. Where like if you get Jalen Smith, you could play him with Duren because he can shoot the three, but they haven't shot that well. Claxton shoots 20% on threes, and Hartenstein shoots 33%. He made a half court shot last night, and the big win for the Knicks. They don't win that game. They got, ticks me off whether you cheer for one team or another team, but the Pacers got ripped off last night with some calls at the end of the game, and there's always the conspiracy theory about the Knicks back when Patrick Ewing the Knicks got in the lottery. They got the first pick, and everybody thought it was because the NBA wanted Ewing to go to the Knicks because New York's such a big important market. But conspiracy theorists certainly would think that somebody wanted the Knicks to win last night because of the calls they got at the end of the game. But anyway, Hartenstein's 26 years old, 7 foot tall, 8 points a game, 8 rebounds a game, 2.5 assists, 64%, 33% on threes. But again, it's Mitchell Robinson, the guy, the center, big guy for the Knicks. He's just injured his ankle, but they love Hartenstein, and they love having both of those guys. But how much can they pay both of them? We'll have to see. And Claxton, I just can't imagine. He's only 25. He's 6'11", and 12 points, 10 rebounds, 63%. He's a lob threat. So, but he can't shoot the three. But so this past year, he only averaged, I shouldn't say only, 2.1 blocks per game. But the year before, he was 2.5 blocks a game. So he can really protect the rim. There's quite a bit of talk about Malik Monk. And I'm going to tell you, I love Malik Monk. And I said it when he was with the Lakers, and he was phenomenal with the Lakers, and he shot the three really well. I said you can ask a friend of mine, I said, we should go get Malik Monk. And he said, nah, we shouldn't go get Malik Monk. But he ended up signing 2-year contract for $9 million a year only. And he's far exceeded that. So he's going to be way more than that, now. But he's only 6'3", so he's another smaller guard, but he's 26 years old, and it's going to be complicated. You can play him with and bring IB off the bench, I guess, or you could bring him off the bench, but I think it would be a little bit complicated. And he made 15.4 million last year, and no, he averaged 15.4 points. I'm sorry, I'm not doing very good today, but he had 3 rebounds a game, 5 assists. His assists were way up, and so he's really developed into a playmaker. But 43% from the floor, 35% on threes, which is down. He was, I mean, I know he's taken some harder ones, 83 percent on free throws, but he did only make 9.9 million the last 2 years, and so I wish we would have got him. It's going to be fascinating. Amazon looks like there's rumors, high speculation that they are going to get 10 years streaming rights. So I don't know how that's going to affect us, the people that like watch Bally Sports. Does that mean that Bally Sports is out and we'll have to get Amazon streaming? There's also been a speculation that ESPN is going to get a 10-year contract, but there's no rumors about TNT. So I don't know what that all means. So I'm going to talk again about Brandon Ingram. I've talked about him before. He's 26. He has 1 year left on his contract. So my thing with guys like Brandon Ingram is he's got 1 year left. Why would he want to re-sign with the Pistons? And if there's going to be other people out there that want him, the only reason why would be if we were the only team that would give him a max contract. And so, and of course, we would never trade for him. You're going to have to trade assets for him, but I would never trade for him unless I was sure that I was going to re-sign him and I was going to get to re-sign him for the amount of money I wanted. And another guy that everybody wants and talks about is, why wouldn't you want Trae Young? And he's only 25 years old, and he scored a lot of points. He averaged 25 points a game, and he 2.8 rebounds, 10.8 assists. He gets a lot of assists, but he dominates the ball. He dominates the ball, and he can't play defense. And so it makes it hard, especially if you're going to put him with Cade. And we don't need another guy. And he shot 37% on threes. He does have 3 years left. I guess he makes between 43 and 48 million during those 3 years he's going to make. So I would rather not get him, and people would say, "Why don't you want him when we're doing so terrible?" And he can't. He has to be better than what we have, and so that's true. But I just think that there's better ways that we could work things. I'd rather keep Ivy and see what happens. But D'Angelo Russell's another guy, so he's got a player option for 18 million. But I'm sure he's not gonna. I'm sure he's gonna try to, sign with another team. But he's 28 years old, a little bit on the older side. 18 points a game, but he shot 45% and 41% on threes. And he's streaky, but the other thing that's very fascinating to me is he's been this young player he's very talented, not known as a very good defender, and there's something about him that he's 28 years old, he's played for four teams already. So there's usually a reason for that, and I don't know what it is exactly, but I would be careful. So Mikal Bridges is another one, and I know James Edwards III had a proposed trade that we trade Duran and Ivy and a draft pick, our first round pick for him, and he's really good, and he's a good fit. He's 27, 19.6 points a game, but he didn't play as well this year as he did at the end of last year. He looked like he was this elite all-star, but he's a real good defender, 4.5 rebounds, 3.6 assists, 43%, and 37% on threes, and 81% on free throws. He has 2 years left on his contract, which is better. But still, you ask yourself, we give up all those players and draft picks, and we only get him for 2 years. But why, when you're at his age, you're 27 years old, and you want to win championships, you're in your prime. That is your prime. 26, 27, 28, 29, that's your prime. And some players like LeBron have defied things, but like I said, even LeBron and Steph and all those guys, there's going to be a changing of the guard. Like I said, all those players that are over 30 that were these sensational players, it's not saying they can't win a championship again, but it's less likely. So big news, lottery is Sunday, so it's less than a week away. We'll find out where we pick, and it's so complicated about what to wish for. I mean, I guess obviously we wish for the top pick, and that if we gives us a better trade chip if we want to trade it, if we get the top pick, and it gives us the pick of the litter if we don't get, we can't trade it, but it's just there's not really, you know, I'm usually confident in who I want my team to take, and there are just not guys that are like that. I'm sure that some of these guys that are picked in the top 5 or 7 are going to go on to be really good players. But which one? None of them have shown signs. And Risha was my guy, and he had a big falling out at the end of the year. But like I said, even the great Therese Halliburton had a big fall off at the end of the year. But still, the other problem with that is, there's a rookie pay scale, so the first round pick gets a lot more than the fifth player pick. So some people would rather maybe trade down for the fifth player pick. But the problem is we don't have our president or head of basketball operations, and it seems to me it would make sense to have him placed by May 12th because that's when the combine starts, and so it goes from the 12th to the 19th, and free agency starts right after the last game of the finals, and you can negotiate right after the last game of the finals. You can negotiate with your own free agents, and then there's that moratorium July 1st through July 6th, and then you can sign anybody. So anyway, it's been great talking with you, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to come on after the lottery on Sunday. So thank you again for listening. Please subscribe, be the reason that somebody feels cared for, and go Pistons.